Here we go.
Let's
back
rock
to
and roll.
the lab again.
That's right. It is January 23rd, the year 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 744.
744. Wow. No
So
recognition. I just saw something from Triathlon magazine, the top 15 triathlon podcast. We weren't on it. Did you see that?
I did. I came across it, and yeah, I mean,
Like, come on, where's the love there, man?
I thought that originally, but then I
you're,
also
like,
realized
grateful.
it was Triathlon magazine,
That's probably why.
and and I was like, I get, it's kind of like I feel about Triathlon magazine like I've always felt about USAT, and they haven't been on people's right side either the last few weeks. They're in their new membership pricing and platinum membership, and asking people who qualified for Worlds to pay $400 for their membership, and they walked back on that. So yeah, it's Triathlon magazine.
Is that that same thing that is that triathlon? What am I thinking of, that Bob Babbitt thing? What is that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I really don't keep track of that stuff. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. I used to be a subscriber.
Oh,
I used to get the Triathlete magazine way back. And this is way back in the day when there was actually a magazine. There was Triathlete magazine, then there was Lava, was the other big triathlon magazine. And of course, anything magazine related has gone, out the door. Like the only time you buy a magazine these days, you're in the airport, right? You're in the gift shop. You're trying to find something to read on the plane, or you want some juicy material in the aisle of the grocery store when you're waiting to get checked out. That's it. No one gets magazines anymore. Or you read something that's been, on the National Geographic on the little, the side table in the doctor's office. It's been sitting there for like 5 years. That's it.
yeah.
You got National Geographic and Popular Mechanics. Those are like your two standard, reading material or people. But yeah, so I haven't been much of I just don't see a lot of going. I just don't see a ton of, I could care less, honestly.
Yeah. Sports Illustrated went down last week.
Well, yeah, because then people figure out they were using like Chat GPT for their article writing.
Well, that's what my point is. I still think there's room for some magazines out there. I mean, people still read books.
That's true. Yeah, I agree with you there.
The key is that they need to put some legit content in there.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Because I had quite a few people send me like the link, and so I went and looked it up on, because USA Triathlon put like the link on their page, and I saw some people comment like, "Hey, Crushing Iron should have been on this," but it got me thinking. It's like, what would you even put as our headline for podcast?
I mean, like the topics or the categories?
Yeah,
they pick 15 different.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading through it, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I can't argue with a lot of those. I mean, because there was that they fit the narrative of the title.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I'd look at the title and go, this probably ain't going to be us.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, most likely to enjoy if you were a Seinfeld fan. Crushing Iron Podcast. Yeah, the show about nothing. Crushing Iron Podcast. Right? It's like, but yeah, it's a top. It's a top 15.
Point. Well, it's not even that. It's a potpourri of 15 topic.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I don't care less, because you know what? We're still here. We're still coming to you Tuesday, twice. If anything, they could have labeled us the most consistent podcast. Yeah. We might not be great. We might be solidly and firmly entrenched in mediocrity, but we're consistent at it. And occasionally have some really occasionally we have some platinum level podcasts that we release. And a lot of times we might have some rhinestones. And then we're everything in between. But at least we show up and we care about our listeners, and we care about you and our audience. If it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the Triathlon podcast universe. Obviously, you have 15 of them that you could also be listening to right now. And we appreciate your time, and thank you for tuning in today. We like to cover it all. We do Spin Bike and Run specific podcast. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes in the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between, if all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group, and we'll do that here today. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes way overcomplicated and way too confusing. It is a solid, safe space to get actionable information from seasoned veterans and beginners alike to help you avoid some of the pitfalls we've all faced along the way. And that is it. We do no sponsors. We do no ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Maybe that could have been our category.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Best
right?
healthy and
if you don't like sponsors and ads,
we're good.
There for you.
Wait, here's one. The best triathlon podcast for fascinating fireside chats. That could have been us.
Fascinating fireside chat.
Come on. What category is that? I'll take it, though, man. I would have taken that.
Yeah, you'd take any free. You know what they say? Any bad press, any kind of press is good press.
I know, and we got no press there.
That's all right. We don't fly on the radar.
Maybe, so you're saying that's incognito bad press?
Yeah, the fact is, if we get too much press, then we get more listeners, and that's just more people to give us feedback that we're terrible. So yeah, we like our groupies, and we like our fan club. We'd rather sell out the 200 person concert than have a lot of empty seats in the stadium, which is what it might be if we got some big press like that.
Oh, yeah.
Hope you're all
grassroots.
Yeah, it's so true. Hope you're all having a good week. We have some questions to finish up on from our last podcast. We went through as many as we could get to, but we're starting off today with our man Paul Dunn.
Paul's bringing it.
Oh, yeah, which Facebook has titled him a top contributor. I signed up for my first 70.3 in September this year, having done a few taster tries last year. I like that word, the taster try. This year I'm planning on moving from tasters to sprint distance, doing maybe 4 or 5 before my half. I've always been a strong cyclist, and I'm working on my swim, averaging 142 per 100. The trouble is, I've never found the love for running, never had that runner's high, and I find it a huge chore. Is my 70.3 a step too far this year, as I plan to do a late season marathon, then move to full Ironman next year? It feels like natural progression, but I could be completely wrong. Based in Scotland flag, thumbs up, bicep flex emoji. You want to take that one?
Bicep flex.
You came strong from Scotland.
Yeah. Why not, man?
That's all you got for him?
Well,
why not?
No, I think it's good. I mean, yeah, that runner's high is in it, because I think I saw that, and some people are like, I never had a runner's high. I think it's, I don't know, you got a lot of sprints going. I definitely would mix in an Oli there.
Yeah, I would definitely weave an Oli in there.
It's a swim and you're a biker, man. You can get that run. You can figure that out.
That's the thing, right? As I'm reading through your quandary here, you got a lot of sprints that you're going to get a lot of practice. If you're not big on the running, right, you do need to. I mean, even if your longest, right, or shortest, running distance in those races is just a 5K. Hey, wait a minute. You don't like running, but you're signing up for a marathon?
Oh wait, I didn't see that part.
Yeah. I'm having trouble tracking here, Paul. So he says, is my 70.3 a step too far this year, as I plan to do a late season marathon? Listen, I'm of the belief that you don't have to love all three of the sports. You just don't. I think a lot of people kind of go through different relationships with all three over time. Sometimes you're loving swimming and you're hating running. Sometimes you're loving running and hating biking. Sometimes you're loving biking, hating swimming. And the other one just kind of fits in there, right? I think everybody, kind of, for the most part, goes through a phase where they are loving one thing and not the other. I go through those phases. A lot of times I'm loving running, not so much swimming, and I'm tolerating biking. A lot of times I can't get enough biking, I'll get the run done and swim. So that's the great thing about the sport, right? It's really hard to burn out as long as you're being objective and your training is right. You're not putting too high expectations on yourself. You get so many things to go between. I do think that falling in love with running for most people, right? I think people's love of running or tolerance of running and their relationship and how they've kind of formulated that is often it's very similar to people who say, I can't run that much. I always get hurt. And I always tell people that if you hate running or don't think you're a runner or you always get hurt, the simple answer is almost always it's because you're running too hard and too fast. That's it. You're running too hard and too fast too often, right? It's insanely hard. I mean, I can go out, and you're going and you run by somebody on the greenway and you're going zone 1 or zone 2 and you're keeping easy and you run by them and they might be slower than you, but their pace, their breathing rate, like you can tell this, right? There's zone 4, zone 5. Same thing as if you're going down a set of stairs out somewhere in public or in a building and you happen to, cross paths with somebody going up and down the stairs who's very out of shape. They're huffing and puffing like you're not sure they're going to make it. You're zone 1, they're zone 5. They're going to be so much more worn out and they're going to hate taking the stairs, right? If you're in shape, you don't mind taking the stairs. If you hate taking the stairs, it's probably because you're out of shape, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing is right? Find ways to like it. You do have a benefit though. I think if you're going to hate one of them, it's best to hate the running because it's last and you just got to get it over with, right? A lot of people who hate one of the three hate swimming, can get better at it, don't like to do it. I'm uncomfortable. It makes me nervous. It increases my anxiety. And then they don't like to race because it's how you start, right? But then once you're past it, you're like, I got it over with, right? So I can see both ends of the spectrum. The bike, you're kind of sandwiched in the middle. You're the cream of the cream filling of the Oreo. But yeah, I think that the best way to go about it is one, definitely add an Olympic because if you're going to be doing 5Ks and the sprints or even sometimes even shorter, longest I've seen is 4 miles. Then you really want to add in, a 10K just for pacing, right? So no, I don't think you're overstretching it. I do think there's always I think runner's high is different, and people's definition of love is different when it comes to running. For me, I feel like a running high for me is when I go out and I've never gotten a running high from a hard workout. Right. And for me, it's not the endorphin boost, right, from a hard session and I see some PRs. To me, I get a runner's high when I go out when it's 25, 30 degrees outside. No one else is out there. It's totally dark or the sun's just coming up. I'm totally alone. I'm doing some aerobic work and I'm just soaking in the day and being present. I come back feeling more energized and happier for the day. To me, that's a runner's high. But that's totally different from other people and what their definition might be of a runner's high.
Yeah, you got to. It's for me, like when people say I don't like swimming or biking or running, it kind of floats back and forth like you were talking about. It's figuring out a mindset, and what you're talking about running and going too fast or going too far. I got a secret that I think that can help you enjoy running more, and it's oddly enough, it's going to be on the treadmill at the beginning. And I like to do these things where I'm doing like sort of these pyramid incline things where I walk a little bit and I run a little bit and I go up it, and you're not like stretching yourself, but man, it feels like such a good workout. And it's one of those things where you kind of can calm back down. A lot recently, I like the idea of mixing in a little bit of walk break here and there because of that, frankly, I've done it. I can run 2 hours without stopping, but a lot of times I'm not in that place, or even an hour. I just like to mix it up a little bit. Like I like to enjoy it, and I have a tendency to go outside of my zones, go too hard, and I think that's exactly why. So either you work on slowing that run down, which can be very difficult for a lot of people, or you can do some kind of mix in some incline work on the treadmill with some walking, hiking, whatever you want to call it, and then run a little bit, like maybe a 2 minutes run on an incline and then walk the last one, or vice versa, and then just kind of go up a little bit and come down a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of a break, but put the work in and kind of train yourself to do a little bit of a harder hike along with it. For me, that's really been working because I'm also kind of thinking about run camp here, and I've been doing some of that and just working, because man, you can move that incline up, and running on some of those inclines is no joke, even if you're going slow. And that's the other thing is I always set that. That's one of the main reasons I like to do this kind of thing on a treadmill is because it sets my pace. And and so in other words, I'm going up, but I'm keeping that slow pace, but it's getting harder. You know what I mean? So I'm not like going too hard, but I don't know. That's why I like the treadmill is sort of a, you know, as much as I used to hate it, but it's sort of a good way to contain myself and find some love.
Yeah, I mean, and just be creative with it. But yeah, I mean, exactly. So you be creative with your running, right? So to answer the question, be creative with your running. We'll definitely weave in an Olympic in there, and take things slower. Like if that's your reason for burnout or the reason you don't like it, you could take things slower. Like I was listening to a podcast, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe, about Phil Moffatone, who used to coach, I think it was Mark Allen. It was it was Dave Scott. He used to coach Dave Scott. I don't know. He either coached Dave Scott or Mark Allen. It doesn't matter. They're both some of the greatest athletes of all time. And he came to him and was basically like, hey, you know, I really want to step up my game. And he was like, all right, well, we really need to change how you're doing everything. And we need to do a ton of aerobic work. And he was like, I don't want to do this. Like, you know, I can do more load. I'm becoming more aerobically efficient, but I can do more. So he did, I think the way he was telling the story is like, I did like 3 or 4 months straight of just aerobic work, 0 speed, 0.
Mm-hmm.
Went to a race in Thailand and beat Mark Allen.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, or vice versa. Whatever. But you get the point, right?
Yeah.
He did all that aerobic work and was afraid he wasn't going to be fast enough, but instead had built such a huge aerobic engine. You're so efficient that he destroyed his main competitor and one of the greatest triathletes of all time.
It's so hard, man.
Right. I mean, it's just like, you know, we go back and yes, and I'm not one to say that like the performances you're seeing now are just incredible. But if you think about like what they were training with back then, heart rate monitors, maybe, Timex watch, spreadsheet. That's it. Road bikes with clip-ons, right? Mm-hmm. No like technology advancements, no super shoes. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so to think that they can do that and be as fast as they were is really incredible. And so I think it's a good lesson for everybody to just kind of remember that, like, you know, when in doubt, go aerobic. Because you can do more of it and it's easier on your body and you're probably going to enjoy it more.
You are, but I still think it's hard to enjoy that unless you can get your head wrapped around the idea that it's a great challenge. You know, I do that a lot on the bike where I'll just be kind of going and I'm like, this is super easy, but it's just on the edge of not easy. But then I'm kind of in this spot where, okay, just work your pedal stroke and really know that this is working. And then you can get off and not feel like ass, you know, but It is hard. It is hard to do that. But I think that's, you know, and that goes back to my whole thing about just really being in tune with your body, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's
I just don't think there's a substitute for that sometimes, especially when it's a bad race day or your shit doesn't work or whatever. How are you going to handle it?
Yep. To be more precise, he coached. So Dr. Phil Moffatone coached Mark Allen 6-time Ironman World Championship. So he did all that training, and then went and beat Dave Scott. So yeah. Anyway, so topic for a different day. But like you said, a lot of times resistance, and I mentioned this earlier on an athlete's Training Peaks in the morning. I said the swimmers that I work with that fail to improve the most are always the ones that are the most negative, self-critical, and never find a win. It's your attitude, right? If you're always looking for a reason to be faster, that you have to be faster today, you're always going to find something to critique. And then you're always going to assume you're not going to have a good swim. If you're not going to have a good swim, you're not going to have one, period. The best is just not to accept, but just to do and get the work done. And then see what happens on race day. Because isn't that all that matters anyway? So yeah, I think listening to your body and maybe listening to the resistance is also a good thing. Next question. Because Glenn Johnson basically just dittoed that. Jeff Tara, for winter indoor biking, if we have a Peloton bike that other family members use with the parentheses with a paid monthly subscription, is it terrible to use it for some rides and use my road bike on a regular, not smart trainer for my longer indoor rides? Is it necessary to spend more on another monthly is it necessary to spend more on another monthly subscription that goes with the Star Smart Trainer? I mean, I'm sure you do too. I've got tons of athletes who use the Peloton.
Yeah.
I mean, is it the perfect setup? No, it's not. If it gets you on the bike though, is it perfect that day? Yes. Now, as you get closer to race day, do you want to spend more time on the actual bike you're going to race on? Yes, because the setup is totally different. Saddle's different. Everything is different. And you might not think that's a huge deal, but it is, especially when you get outside. So I would definitely suggest being very careful with how much you use it and when you use it. But right now, if you're far away or you're traveling or it just makes more sense to do it and you like it and you can do a ton of them, then do it. And then when you get closer to race day, use the bike that you're going to race on. But yeah, I'm all for, is it specific? No, but there's a time and place to be specific with your training, and it doesn't have to be 6 months out from a race. Now, if you're 4 weeks out from a race, you're going to be in aero the whole time, you better get on your tri bike. But if you're far out, you're far away and you like doing it, it's easy for you and it's something that you enjoy and it makes you love riding. Again, going back to talking about, being resistant to something, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, this is like that last question a little bit to me. It's sort of like what's going to get you on there. If you enjoy it, not only Pelotons, but I have athletes that like to do spin classes, and especially if they're a long way away, I'm just like, yeah, get on, I mean, we used to do spin classes back in the day. I did. You didn't, I don't think. You weren't a...
Whoa.
What?
For your information.
I just remembered something, but go ahead.
Yeah. I did 95%. So this is way back in the day. There's a race, I've talked about this before. There was a race series called Tri 101. And it was a 1.8 mile swim, an 80 mile bike, and then a 16, 18 mile run. Whatever gets you to, 101 miles. And I did not over 95% of my training on it in a spin class. I was waiting tables at the time. This is 20 years ago. Working the Cheesecake Factory in Green Hills. And I would get up 4:30, 5 o'clock, try and eat on the way. This is back to our oatmeal sandwich creation conversation. I'd eat an oatmeal sandwich on the way, and then I would get in there and I'd have 4 to 6 bottles of Accelerate, which was real big back then. I mean, straight sugar, straight carbs. I don't even know if they make it anymore. And I would do, because I was trying to work my way to 80 miles on the bike, but I didn't have, it wasn't conducive to riding in Nashville. And I didn't even know about the trace, I don't think, at that point. And I would do 4 to 5, sometimes 6 spin classes in a row as my ride. That's a long ride that day. So yeah, I mean, Rachel was my favorite instructor.
I like good spin class. I think spin classes are good for teaching people to push themselves. Because if you're alone on a trainer, sometimes I think you kind of lollygag. It's easier to do that. But no, I was just thinking back to when we were training for Ironman Wisconsin.
You did quite a few spin classes.
We did a lot of early, same kind of deal. We get there early and then register for the spin class and go right through it and then just ride on the spin bike for a little bit longer. And then one day, I remember, this is back when you were a little bit more Bobby Knight about your approach. But I remember a text we got one day in the group. It said, "Breaking news, this just in, spin bikes not allowed at Ironman Wisconsin." And all I could think of was shit, I just spent 4 hours on a spin bike, man. That hurt.
Was it a drunk text, or was it early enough to where I was probably not hungover anymore?
Probably both.
Probably both.
Well, it was Saturday, probably about noon. So there was a good chance it might have started.
I was probably in a green window. I either just started back then or I was in a clean streak. I was clear as day for about the 4 or 5 hours way back then. I mean, I'm all for stuff like that, especially the farther you out. I mean, and I feel the same way about going to, a swim group you like, or a run group you like, or a trail run group, whatever it is, meetups. Listen, especially this time of year, do what you got to do to get it done. Do what you got to do to get it done. Are you going to find pros rocking out the Peloton? Probably not. Maybe. Who knows? They're on a trip. But just knock it out. Get it done, knock it out. And no, you don't need another subscription. I mean, to me, the only real subscription you need for indoor bike training is like a streaming service. That's it. Know your workout, use your watch, use your bike computer, and knock out, however much you need to knock out, and you'll be good. I mean, I think I talked before, but when last time I did Ironman Wisconsin, right when Hayden was born, I couldn't leave the house and I had to stay close to him. I was doing 4.5, 6 hour trainer rides, and I blazed through Sons of Anarchy in all the seasons in a month. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. But yeah, all for it. All for it.
I'm all about, I just put on the Pimps or Jack Harlow and I'm gone.
I'm gone. Yeah, you do have a steel mind when it comes to the trainer. I've seen it, and it's impressive. All right, let's see. Next question. Juan, what would be your advice to go from a 7-hour bike leg on a full Ironman to a sub 6 hour? What would be the minimum rides per week, and what would those rides look like? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, this is 100% those. It depends, and we definitely can't give you how much to ride and when to ride, because I don't know what you did before. So that's very, very different.
What course is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I don't know what course. I mean, I could easily just say, well, don't do Wisconsin, go do Florida, and you could probably solve that equation right then. For most people, it's just keep riding. In my experience, cycling really takes a while if you're not a cyclist to develop aerobically, especially because most people, when they start out cycling, start out like they do running. They just want to run fast all the time. So they don't really establish and create a really great aerobic metabolic system. They just go hard, right? And they end up having one speed, going super slow or going all out where I can't breathe, just like in swimming. So I would just say more time accumulated. I can't emphasize enough how much aerobic riding you should be doing. If you can ride 4 days a week, ride 4 days a week. Do a block where you're riding 4 or 5 days a week. You don't need to do it too far out from race day. Do it pretty close. I mean, I would do it 6 to 12 weeks out. That was one of the things I tried to, and again, that's the hardest part too, because riding is also the most, takes up the most time for most athletes. It's an hour and a half, and it's Ironman training, I only got an hour and a half today. And you're God, it's still an hour and 45 minutes of your time, even if you're doing it on the trainer. Get your bottles, get dressed, get on the trainer. From some athletes, sync 19 different devices, update Zwift 4 times, get on Discord, and I'm ready to go. So I get it. It takes time. But if you can find a way to ride more days a week than you don't, then you'll see a gigantic bump. And so that would be my number one. But then again, if you're being consistent, you're still moving forward, with your training, and you didn't take a bunch of time off, you will get better. I mean, I think my first ever bike split was 7+ hours, I think. Very first ever at Ironman Florida. And then I think 2 years later at Arizona, I did a 5, right around a 5:30. And I just kept training. And so, I mean, I think a lot of it is just more time accumulated. Pacing is a good thing to focus on. Then also make sure you're feeling right. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people want to make these big jumps year to year, or want to reinvent the wheel. And a lot of times the best thing you can do is just not to get distracted and keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because most people impede their progress by looking for faster ways to progress. I'll say it one more time. Most people impede their own progress by getting too distracted on trying to find different ways to progress. And that is true for so many age group athletes, especially self-coached. They get so distracted to do something different, a new way of training, that all they really need to do is give it more time. There's that, that cartoon that people, send around. It's it's about giving up, and it's like this, little caveman with a pickaxe, and he's like, making his way through the dirt, and he's trying to find gold, and he quits right before he's like one strike away to getting there. And the moral of the story is, like most people give up right before things get better. And so just keep working at it. It might not be flashy, it might not be fantastic, but I mean honestly, that's to me that's always been, as the age group athlete's number one favorite triathlete, Lionel Sanders. I don't think he's ever had a problem with physical ability and his physiology or his ability to win a world championship. I think his biggest detriment to progress has been his attention span.
Okay.
And I think that's so true with most age group athletes. So just stay the course, keep working hard. Don't do anything, don't try to reinvent the wheel, but maybe just add one extra easy ride a week. And I think you'd be surprised how much better you get.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice there, because I have gone the other way, and I know how I did it, and it was by not doing what you were saying. I was usually 6 or sub 6 on the bike, and of course I've had 2 sort of tough rides the last 2 years at Wisconsin. But this kind of goes back to what I always think is that also when you're doing your intervals and some of your harder rides, really going after it. I think that a lot of us don't really get after the bike as hard as we could. And then to your point, finding a day or another chance to ride during the week is always huge, because right when that question was asked, I was kind of thinking to myself, well, that's about being familiar on the bike and handling and just being more comfortable on the bike. I can say that back when I was training for Louisville, the full, and it was my first non-wetsuit swim, I would swim every day. And I don't necessarily think I got to be a better swimmer. I just got more confident and more comfortable in the water. And I think a lot of times that's what happens on the bike. I just think a lot of people just aren't that comfortable on the bike or confident. And that just, the only way to really solve that issue is to get on the bike a lot more.
More is better, as long as you're doing it the right way. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Next question, Matt Kolb. After two-a-day workouts, my appetite is out of control. Any suggestions to control it? Man, this is a tough one. And I am, I will do our usual fine print disclaimer asterisk. I am not a sports nutritionist or dietitian. So please just take this as my personal experience and not professional advice. In my experience as an athlete and listening to other athletes and talking to a few people in that sports nutrition space, if you are way over hungry or having like super like high cravings for certain things, it likely means you are underfueled. So you might want to look at how much you are eating before and fueling during. If you're having, and again, it might not be the amount, it might be what's in it, right? And then a lot of times it is you crave what you eat, right? Like one of the biggest differences I've noticed since going down from like 12 Splendas and 3 Crystal Lights a week is I don't ever want sugar. Ever. And ever. Like I don't know that I've had anything sweet in the last month. And I'm starting to wonder if I really liked coffee or just liked the taste. Just because it was because it just makes you want more, right? I think sugar is the most addicting thing on the planet. And yeah, I think that a lot of it is, what are you putting in your body? And then are you fueling enough before? Because like you said, like I mean, I should probably just shut up because you can talk about your trunk cookies, right? Like, when you're satiated and you fueled right, you're not going to be, after a workout, you're not going to be like, oh, you're not so depleted that you want to have something. And people go either way, like super salty or super sugary. And to me, both of those are signs of lack of the appropriate amount of blank. Right. And so I think that's the biggest cue is to look at, am I fueling enough before, during, and then immediately after? Because I think, and I've been there, 100% been there, is I think a lot of people struggle with the amount of food to take in because they're so concerned. They don't want all this training to go to waste because they're not losing weight or quote unquote being fit. And so I do. I think it's a delicate balance, and something that if you feel like you have like a major issue with, then reach out to someone who's a professional with it and see if they can help you maybe isolate and do some detailed, in-depth food logging and fueling logging to see what it is you're taking in, and is it really. So I would have to imagine most people, if they log their food each day and they track their macros, which is not something I'm suggesting people do. But I think if you did it, right, on just a random day of the week and you did the calculation, you probably find out you're eating way too much, or you're not eating near enough for what you're doing. I think the eyeball test with food is, for a lot of people, is lacking. So that's just a few of my tidbits on that.
Well, I like those. My first thought when I heard that question was dehydration, because I've always been a big, you're not hungry, you're thirsty. I always try to tell people, or myself, that if I feel hungry, I always take a glass of water first and see if that kind of satiates things a little bit. Yeah, I think sugar and coffee, those things are sort of self-fulfilling, and they just kind of keep tumbling along if you're not fueled or hydrated. And you make a great point. I think, especially with, and I do it, the whole thing about fasting and not eat, intermittent, like in the mornings. I've never been a great eater, but I do think that if I'm going to have a big workout, I need to get some fuel in it. If you look at run camp, for example, how much we eat there, I think that that's subtly a reason why we can actually do what we do. I mean, we spend a lot of time eating, but we also spend a lot of time just crushing the hills and stuff like that. And I'm always kind of amazed that I can do it, but I wonder if a lot of times if it is because I'm consistently fueling out there, and these are the things, man. You start drinking that coffee. I used to talk about that on here. Is like, if I get up and I go right for coffee, I know I'm in trouble. Not really, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's not a good sign, because it's sort of like, okay, I need some sort of fake top end, fuel when really I need something deeper. And that to me is always the signal. And even like, I've been working yesterday I had a pretty good workout, and I found myself kind of like in his position, like just craving and eating, like I wanted to eat. And I just kind of had to let it go. I tried not to eat. I actually went to the store yesterday and avoided the cookies, which was pretty impressive because I was on that mode, and I said, talk myself out of it. But
look at you making steps.
Yeah, it's little stuff.
You obviously didn't go to the store after you swam. That's the biggest mistake.
Not swimming, no.
Go to grocery or Costco after you swim.
You're done.
Game over.
Yeah.
Get out the credit card. You're paying it off for 3 months.
I know. It's like, what? Yeah. So it's just sort of
attention. Pay attention, and honestly, it's a struggle for me too. Like, and I think it's a struggle for a lot of athletes, because and I've always found this to be true. Like, if I look back at the period in time where I was probably the lightest and the most fit, so like back, which is like the opposite of most people, like back during COVID in the pandemic, like when I was like, on the watt bike, 6 days a week, and you'd come in and shake your head at me, and I was on it, and I was just training a ton. 85% of it was aerobic, but I was just training a ton, but I was eating plenty. I was just eating the right food. And since then, even though when I try to go back and I'm training for a full now, I'm still struggling with remembering that eating more is the answer. Because I think most athletes' biggest issue is this, and it's mine too. Right? I'm not safe from making these mistakes too, even though I know the answer. For me, right? Not for everybody. For me.
For you.
For me. Was that if you get in this, for me, and I think this is true for a lot of people, right? And it goes back to performance, right? I mean, it goes back to what we talked about last Tuesday. And I think it's a great point to make, even if we spend a little extra time on it today, because of this time of year, people are trying to, maybe change their body composition or do different things, is that the best way to be able to lose weight, right, is through diet and exercise. But if your diet is limiting the amount of exercise you can do, you are also sacrificing the opportunity to change your body composition, right? So I'll know for me, like, I wasn't ever counting calories back when I think I got down to like 167, which is about 20 pounds lighter than I am right now. And I remember my main focus was eating enough, was eating more.
Yeah, I remember that.
The more I remember we had this conversation. I remember sitting in the office at the hub.
I'm like, dude, you're eating
I know you were like, that's a snack. I was like, yes, it's a snack. Because the problem I found was that if I didn't eat enough, then the 2-hour ride I wanted to do turned into 45 minutes or an hour.
Right.
And so I'm not really gaining anything because I'm running on fumes, right? I'm running in a huge caloric deficit. I'm also not going to ride as long, right? Well, it's like impact performance, right? And then I'm also not going to recover as well because I'm underfueled. Therefore, tomorrow's workout will be not as good, and I'll probably be even more underfueled. So I think it's a great topic and something everyone needs to pay attention to. Again, in their own way, that a lot of times underfueling is a recipe for disaster because you're not going to train as much, which is impact performance, which is going to impact your overall health, right? Because training more is usually a good thing. And then you're going to get burnt out, and then that drastic caloric deficit makes you like want to crave things that are going to put you right back to where you were before. So yeah, I mean, your dehydration point is such a great point that I totally missed. Is also something to be aware of. And again, to me, it goes down to deficit.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, man. Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, right now I'm looking out and all I see is ice and snow. It's tricky to get into that and burn a lot of calories. So, but I do notice that when I'm training for Ironman in the summer, I'm just eating like everything under the sun, but my body's coming around. I'm sure it's got a lot to do with heat and sweat and all that kind of other stuff, but you have to fuel, man.
Fueling is good. Fueling is not bad.
Yeah. And I do think a lot of times I stay, you can eat a lot, but you just have to, it's hard to overeat the right stuff. I feel like,
mm-hmm.
You're talking about coffee and sugar and everything like that. And I do think that food additives are probably one of the biggest problems with people trying to lose weight. It's just the synthetic kind of crap that our body doesn't know how to handle, and it probably just stores it, and it's just a sleeper little thing. But, that's why I'm like you, man. I try to stay away from all that fake shit.
Try. Yeah, it's hard, and it's not terrible to have, right? Sometimes, but all the time, I think it is problematic. Next question, Jonathan Schuster. It's way too early in the season to even ask this question, so let's go. Who's going to be on top in the Ironman World Championships this year? What about in the Paris Olympics? Yeah, I don't even know that I can go there right now.
Is this an Olympic year?
Yeah.
Boy.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is a really tough one. I have a hard. I think if the ladies were back in Kona this year, I would stick with Lucy based on what she just did. Having said that, it's in Nice. And I think if Taylor Knibb does it, I think she will win. I think the climate, I think the bike course is a big advantage. So much more technical of a bike ride than Kona is. And I think that makes a huge difference. On the men's side, oh man. That's the $1 million question. I think it's going to be a absolutely loaded field. You'll see Blumenfeld and hopefully Gustav Iden back on the starting line. You'll see all the men back on the starting line. Who absolutely knows? I'll be rooting for Gustav Iden after the last 6 to 8 months, and he had a pretty rough time. It's going to be interesting. Olympic wise, man, it's hard to see Hayden Wild not winning. But But it's funny because like those guys are so insanely fast. And this is like, I'm sure most people don't care about this conversation, but like Morgan Pearson, who is a USA triathlete, he qualified for the Olympics in running last weekend and declined a spot. That's how fast these guys are. It's unreal. So if he has like his best day, he could be on the podium. I think Alex Yee, Hayden Wild, and Blumenfeld are probably the top three to look at. And the French, who knows? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But the French are going to be like working together the whole time because it's in Paris, and they're going to want someone on the top step no matter what, and they can usually outswim everybody. So that ambition on the women's side, man, I'll have to see what people's form is like. I think it starts next month or in Abu Dhabi or maybe early March. Hard to bet against Flora Duffy. she's such a champ. So yeah, who knows? We'll see. But yeah, we're way too far out. We got to have a whole lot of races to happen before we can even start going down that train. But yeah, it's still exciting to talk about, and it should be a really interesting year with WTCS races starting early, like I think late February, March, and then you got the World Championships, men back in Kona, women in Nice. It's going to be an exciting year. And I'll move to the next question because I doubt you have any picks.
I just look out for Ben Hoffman's comeback.
Yeah, that's right. It's Ben Hoffman, man.
I'm ready for him.
Ben Hoffman. Rob, we got time for maybe one or two more. Rob Ziminak. We focus so much on workout. People don't discuss strength, mobility, and stretching. How much time should we be focusing on this a week? How much time should we focus on stretching after an hour run, swim? I think this is really important and often overlooked by athletes. Any thoughts on the Myrtle routine post-running? I think we talked about this on the last one. We've talked about it plenty of times before. I'm not familiar with the Myrtle, except it's Myrtle Beach. That's the only Myrtle I'm familiar with. I'm a huge fan of mobility work. I'm a huge fan of doing something before running. I think that's way more important to do it after running. Stretching, I if you're talking about static stretching, I see zero benefit, if not harm. There's zero. I've never read a research paper in my life that says static stretching is beneficial to any performance gains or prevents any injury. Period. Mobility, foam roll, maybe the Theragun, good things. But if you're going to do anything, do it before. Foam roll, mobility, leg foundation, 7 ways hips. Those are all really good things to do before. And I feel like we discussed strength training on Tuesday's podcast, or excuse me, last Thursday's podcast.
Yeah, I think we did.
I'm
looking at Myrtle. Looks pretty good. Yeah. I'd do it every day.
The Myrtle?
Sure. Clams and...
Oh, yeah. That what it is, the Myrtle.
Donkey whips. Fire hydrants.
Donkey whips. Hey there. Last question.
Like
this one's for you. We can end it here. Why doesn't Mike get 100% all in on his training? I feel if he got consistent and extremely disciplined, he could be in the top 5 in his age group at every race.
Who asked that?
Your mom. I'm kidding. Dan Kavanaugh.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that sounds like Glenn or Emily, maybe.
No.
Yeah, man. How deep do you want to go into my childhood?
I mean, we got 10 minutes. Go for it.
I think it's a fair question. For whatever reason, I just haven't put that much importance on it, I guess. I think it's difficult. I also think it's scary. I mean, I think that, it's kind of one of those things where you like to have a carrot out there and then know that you're possibly can, it's just an underachievement thing. I mean, I think I used to do this in baseball too. I had a lot of this sort of, he has the tools but doesn't work at it. And it was weird because I didn't get really into working on my baseball skills until I started playing softball later in life. And it definitely is something that is a challenge for me. I didn't really grow up an endurance athlete either, so I have a tendency to kind of look for shorter cuts and most efficient amount of training possible. And I really think I've been close, But, you know, you're right in the sense that it has to be the perfect day for me. I kind of had that feeling last year. And of course I had the mechanical and I was on the side of the road 45 minutes and that screwed everything. But, I don't know. It's just hard for me to be that consistent over a long period of time. And like I said, I didn't really grow up an endurance athlete. So I have other interests and things like that too, that I think just distract me or whatever. But, you know, I think it's a good question though, because I think a lot of people probably are in this boat.
I think almost every athlete's in this boat.
Yeah. I think that, we probably all leave a lot on the table, but you know, sometimes I think it's fear of really getting the truth. It's like,
I think most athletes, if with the right training and giving themselves the right amount of time and the consistency, could all crack top 10, top 5 in their age group. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think, you know, I think it's a tough question because there's a lot wound up in that. You know, and you could say it's about your childhood or underachieving or, you know, finding things out. But, you know, a lot of times it's also, you know, like just, you know, if you, let's say, you know, because everything we do in life is about a choice, right? Saying yes to something and no to something else, or saying no to something and saying yes to something else. And, you know, so where would you be, right? Would you be anywhere different in life if that was the case? Right? Or if you missed out on certain things. I think that's an important thing to distinguish between that. I mean, do I feel like I've ever reached my potential? Maybe once in a season, I feel like I really reached my potential. And the other times I 100% don't. And that's just a fact. Is that something that I've like, well, if you would just, you know, but if I did that, then, you know, if you look at your life and how you allocate time, like, would I be would I be that much happier in life?
Right.
And what would I give up? You know, like even like right now, like I'm trying to figure out how Ironman training fits in my life again. Mm-hmm. And it's not perfect because I still like to play tennis. And it puts a pounding on your body. I mean, I played 2 hours on Friday, I played 2 hours on Sunday. And I mean, it's a workout, but to me, it makes me happy. And so if I have to pick between, which I'm trying to figure out now, how to squeeze every single bit of my training into Monday through Friday, and around work, and around Hayden, and around being a husband, and around hockey and sports commitments, and around relaxing, that's a challenge. But then on Saturdays and Sundays, right? Because if as a coach, like I don't have to, when I associate training still some with work. But on the weekends, or like when I log off on Friday, to be able to go play tennis with a group of guys that I enjoy talking about that has nothing to do with triathlon. And I can play tennis and disassociate and have fun and challenge myself and be competitive. Love it. Same thing on Sunday. Instead of maybe getting up and, you know, and going out and doing a, you know, hour and a half run by myself or hopping on the trainer by myself alone, I can go play doubles and tennis with another different group of guys and have fun and connect. And so I think for all people, there's a, time, reward, investment, happiness equation we all have to kind of work our way through. And sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we overcommit, sometimes we don't. But, you know, it's like, hey, like, and right now I'm not willing to give up that one-on-one connection, right? For a guy that sits in front of his computer, just like you do, right? In their laptop for 45, 50 hours a week, talking to athletes, Zoom with athletes, you know, like texting with athletes, training peaks, emails. It's a lot of alone time. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of alone time. Yeah, you get texts and stuff like that, but it's not face-to-face. It's not getting you out of yourself, right? And so for me, I'm not willing. I'd rather, and this is something I think you have to have this conversation with when you do things objectively, is like, you know, come Ironman Texas, you know, would I love to PR? Sure. It'd be great. Who doesn't like to PR? Do I think I'll be able to be in the shape to go sub 10:30 and be happy along the way and keep my connections and keep doing things that allow me to be happy and allow me to be better in other parts of my life? I don't know. Right? Because I feel like when I play tennis and I get out of the house, right? Again, a lot of it's about leaving, right? Getting out and doing things. Other people is like disassociate. I feel like it makes me a better coach because it takes me away from training. I step away from coaching and thinking about intervals and, just like something you do because it's your life. And I feel like I come back energized and my cup is full. So if I didn't do that, would my cup be more empty? And how would that impact my day-to-day relationships, my ability to be a good father or a good husband or a good coach? So I think we all, it's impossible, I think, and unfair to ask any athlete in a vacuum to ask that question, why? Because there's always an answer, and it's, you just can't put the work in. Well, I mean, putting a lot of work in.
Yeah.
It's not like, you're not putting work in. It's just you're choosing to work in different areas, or you're building a business like we have the last, 6 or 7 years, right? Moved, opened up training. I mean, like, it's a lot. So I think this isn't me defending you, although I think what you've done is fantastic. It all comes down to our own personal choices and what we're going to be able to live with. Because I would also say that some people who spend every waking minute alone training, when they're done, you're done. And are you going to look back and think, I really wish I would have gone on more group runs or group rides? I really wish I had taken things so seriously. I really wish I'd have done other things, because now I don't know where to go, because triathlon's my only identity. Now what do I have left?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a tough, again, how deep do you want to go down the rabbit hole question?
Well, I do want to say that, I mean, what you're saying there really resonated with me, because this is, this would be, I've shown up to 10 straight Ironmans, in my 50s. And I do realize that I've gotten to them healthy and with an excitement. And I think that I'm a little bit afraid of burnout, because like you said, we do this all the time. And even this is like our life. So I have to keep a balance too. And I'm always looking for different things to do and different ways to keep training engaging. And that's why I'm so, I guess, enamored with cross training of different, in different ways and things like that, just to keep the level of sanity through the whole process. And I think that as I go through it, I think that every year I sort of like, you coined the phrase, stay in the ballpark. And I feel like that's kind of my game plan, is to be in the ballpark. And I felt like last year when I showed up, I had a shot at that. But also I realized that, see, I've never been a quote unquote goal guy. I think that people have goals and that's fine. But when that becomes the life, that's like, my thing is always about trying to enjoy whatever today is, whatever I'm doing today, and try to get a little bit better at it along the way. And that's really been my thing. I used to be really obsessed with getting on the podium, and it would just put a lot of pressure on it. It would take any kind of joy out of the process away. And, sometimes this isn't you got to find a weird kind of twisted joy in training for full Ironman, So it's never easy to keep going. So I think a lot of times that becomes my battle, is just to figure out, how to keep it, something that I enjoy doing, and in the same process, getting a little bit better, hopefully. And for me, it hasn't been getting better through doing more. It's been really thinking about it intellectually or kind of strategically and things like that. So I don't know. Life gets in the way, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that, and nothing wrong with that. Yeah, so I mean, I totally agree, and it goes back to the same thing I think we mentioned, or in last week's podcast, is that you can be really, really, really fast and also very unhealthy.
Yeah,
you can be way too skinny. You can shove every sugar you can possibly imagine down your mouth hole and put down some fast times. You can isolate yourself from any friendship, say no to every social event, and then but you had some PRs. But again, I think it's overall health, right? Not just speed and PRs and top 5 finishes and age groups, but also just overall happiness in life.
Yeah. I actually really like this topic. I think it's just so relative, to everybody. It
is. Yeah. I think everybody has their own version, right, of relative. And it's the epitome of well, it depends. Because I think like if you, when you fill out, questionnaires, the doctor, or you start working with somebody and they say, how happy are you in all aspects of life? I think how you answer that, it's a really great description and very telling to, some people say, I'm training. If it's all in one space, all in one spot. And some people can do that and they do it fantastic. I know athletes who balance things like, they are unreal at balancing everything, getting it all in and maintaining friendships and relationships and social activities and getting all the training, and they're still fast. Well, you know what? Raise my glass to you. Here's to you. That ain't me. And I think a lot of us aren't. So I think when you see people like that, you kind of wonder, why can't that be me? But we're all different. We all have our own prerogatives and we all have our own life. And then the best way to be happy is to go out and live it as best you can, and the best way you see fit for the season of life you're in at this moment.
That's it.
Yeah, we can go down this rabbit hole again on Thursday. It's a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Lots of tunnels. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. As always, great questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but as you have known for the last 6-7 years, we tend to go down rabbit holes. Hopefully you got something out of them. I feel like a lot of the topics today were applicable and probably resonate with a lot of you. And we hope they did, and the explanations did as well. So as always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he is available, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, my man.
All right, dude. I'll see you Thursday.
All right, see you.